That's in there. So today's talk is I've been looking forward to for some time. As some of you may know, this whole look at sustainability science began here a while back with something we call the Sustainability Solutions Initiative, and a bunch of faculty and students worked on that for many years together. One of them went from being a student to a faculty member. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But sustainability science, whatever else it means that a lot of different kinds of voices need to be at play at once. And those include all different fields of academic knowledge, science, engineering, social sciences. All of these people out in the real world who kind of experience these challenges and opportunities in their own unique ways, decision makers, citizens, lots of folks. And so we've been practicing now going on, 7, 8 years, how to do this work. Out of that thing that was called the Sustainability Solutions Initiative, we actually got another big grant from the National Science Foundation called NEST, which allowed us to kind of build a broader collaboration across New England. In fact, NEST stands for the New England Sustainability Consortium. Kind of look for the C there at the end. But the first of the NEST projects is one that you're going to hear a lot more about today, which we call the Safe Beaches and Shellfish project. And there's even a second NEST project that's been launched in about the last 8 months that focuses on the future of dams. You can hear about both of those. So to me, one of the things that I'm going to be listening for today is sort of how do we tell the stories of these complex collaborations in ways that are faithful and to the kind of diverse voices and perspectives that exist about these problems, but that also aspire to find common ground and find real-world solutions to these problems. And you might almost think that's a paradox, right? If people think about things really different ways, there's diverse voices, where can the common ground come from? I would just say that I just completed my book report. I have to write a book review of Senator Mitchell's book, and no one has spent a larger fraction of their life that I know of than Senator Mitchell in searching for that common ground in places where the voices could not be more diverse and often conflictual, not the least when he was Special Envoy for Middle East Peace in President Obama's first term. So enough of sermonizing. Two speakers today, Tyler Quiring and Bridie McGreavy. To me, it's we're already seeing sort of intergenerational growth in capacity for doing this important work. Bridie was there at just about the beginning of the Sustainability Solutions Initiative as a PhD student, having already done wonderful work in this area, but came to us and kind of quickly surpassed our ability to think about many of these things, so much so that she was the first postdoc we hired on the NEST Safe Beaches and Shellfish project, and beginning last semester, became an assistant professor at the University of Maine. And that's not an easy thing to do. You may not realize that it's actually a disadvantage to try and get a faculty position at a place where you got your PhD. Let's just say she made the decision quite easy for the search committee. She's brings diverse methods. She'll tell you more about that, so I'm not the expert, but it's safe to say mixed methods are one of her strong suits. And then we have Tyler Quiring here, who not only came to the University of Maine with a strong background, he did an undergraduate degree in media production from Southern Adventist College in Collegeville, Tennessee, but then he did a master's in conjunction with this Safe Beaches and Shellfish project in communication, and I'm happy to say he has just been accepted into the PhD program in communication and journalism, and will be continuing to work on this with this new NEST project that we call the Future of Dams. So welcome Bridie, welcome Tyler.
Thank you. Just gotta make this full screen here. Thank you, David, very much for that very kind introduction and for setting the stage so well for what we want to talk about here today. And I'm glad that you mentioned and gave a little bit of a background on NEST. I want to just make sure we're all on the same page about just what NEST is and what NEST has been up to, because it's a major part of the talk today. So NEST is the New England Sustainability Consortium, like David mentioned, and really it's a team of researchers in New Hampshire, in Maine, and Rhode Island now too, that's funded by the National Science Foundation. And NEST is using sustainability science to enhance the use of science in decision making in New England through things like collaborative research and knowledge co-production with stakeholders. So it's a really innovative and interactive way of doing collaborative work and contributing to solving complex problems. And what we're going to be talking about today is both of the major projects that NEST has been and some of the roles that we have had on these projects. So the first one is Safe Beaches and Shellfish. And this project is really about responding to issues that impact the coastal lives and livelihoods in Maine and New Hampshire. So in particular, it's focused on bacterial contamination of coastal areas. And I actually started on this project 2 years ago, like David mentioned, as a graduate student. I was studying communication. But as you can see now, right here, the project's winding down. It's 2016, so it's reaching its final stages. But don't worry, because also, like David mentioned, there is a new project starting up on NEST, another innovative project, and this one is on the future of dams. So through this project, NEST is going to be trying to understand the role of dams in New England, both in the infrastructure and the communities in New England, in order to be able to provide some really useful tools that enhances those communities' ability to make decisions about the dams that are near them and the dams that impact their lives. So my colleague, Dr. Bridie McGreavy, is a co-PI on that project, and so she'll be telling you much more about that. So we're both researchers on NEST, and today we want to talk to you about online archives that we're involved in and that we're trying to develop in order to increase NEST's capacity to meet its collaborative goals, to really try to match this lofty goal of being able to bring a lot of people together to find common ground to solve complex problems in society. So we're going to explain kind of how that functions a little bit more fully through some key examples, but first I kind of wanted to get a sense of the landscape for how NEST has already been using the web to share information. So these websites are not really the main subject of our talk, and we're not the producers or maintainers of them, but I did want to bring them up here to give a really important nod to the people that are already doing great work at sharing information online and really embracing online platforms. So the first one, I just want to pull it up so you can get a sense of what it looks like. The first one is the official website of NEST, of the New England Sustainability Consortium. So this is kind of a one-stop shop for all the information you need on NEST. So if you're interested in the Safe Beaches and Shellfish project, or if you're interested in learning more about the future of dams, this is a great place to come to find out a lot of the initial information, news, and resources too related to NEST and its projects. So a really important first step portal for sharing information. But then there's also a few other approaches. For example, the experimental program to stimulate competitive research, which is housed both at New Hampshire and Maine, and it's kind of like the home base for NEST in a way. They also have websites that give a lot more information about what we do and also share important news and information that way. But it's not just public information sharing that goes on. This one isn't much to look at unless you can log in. It's an internal website that illustrates that NEST researchers are using online tools in order to coordinate and share information. So this is a team collaboration platform. And if we were to sign in, we'd be able to see information that NEST researchers have shared and the ways they're using online systems to collaborate as well. So just a nice example of how online systems enable those kinds of interactions. But then there's a few others. I'm going to switch back to here again because there's the profile on NEST on the Mitchell Center website as well, and Plymouth State University also has a profile, and then the New England Stewardship Network at UNH has a lovely site that's focused on getting people involved in citizen science, so extending the efforts of NEST. And then the last one that I really want to highlight as well is the Data Discovery Center at UNH. And this is a really lovely project that is focused on making public all the great data that NEST researchers have been compiling throughout the course of this 3-year project. So if you come into any of these portals, you're going to be able to explore and check out a lot of the data that has been generated, a lot of the useful information that NEST researchers have been using as the basis of their research and producing through their research. So a really nice example of online information sharing, but also, since our talk is focused on online archives, I thought that this was a really nice example of an archive that's already very well established in place and doing some great work to share a lot of this important research data. But in addition to websites themselves, NEST also uses social media. So I've counted, my count might be off slightly by 1 or 2, but I've counted at least 4 Facebook pages that are involved in sharing information related to NEST, 3 Twitter profiles, related to like the experimental program to stimulate competitive research, the EPSCoR programs, and then 2 Vimeo accounts, one at UMaine and one at New Hampshire, UNH, that are doing really great work at sharing video and other materials. So really what all of this is to say is that NEST has really embraced sharing information online. And sorry. And so this really raises the question then, why make another website? Why would we want to add another one to this list? Well, that's a question that I hope we can demonstrate through the course of this talk to really show what we think online archives can add to this list and to all this great activity. So we're going to be talking about one new website that we're cultivating that has multiple opportunities for stakeholder engagement in sustainability science, and the website is nest.maine.edu. And the site really uses communication as a catalyst for engagement. So it's not just the product of engagements. The site isn't just a reflection of what's been done, but it's also a way for prompting new possibilities for engagement too. And the site has room to grow for future NEST endeavors as well, like on the future of dams and new projects and possibilities. For example, there's 2 branches of the site, and we're going to be going over both of them. One is focused on they mirror the 2 NEST projects. So one's focused on the Safe Beaches and Shellfish project. It's in 2 subparts. So there's a transmedia story-making site, and I'll go over a little bit more about that concept in a moment. But there's also a multimedia archive that's very exciting that I want to talk to you about too. And then Dr. McGreavy is going to talk about the future of dams and a communication decision support system that she's been instrumental in developing there too. So, in terms of how I came around to be involved in all of this, I came onto the Safe Beaches and Shellfish project as a graduate student in the summer of 2014, but I immediately fell in love with sustainability science and the way that approach allowed for a wide diversity of ideas and approaches to collaboratively work together on complex problems. So my background's in media production, and I was really looking for opportunities to be able to use media production to enhance these engagements. And there's a communications scholar that I really appreciate his work. His name's Henry Jenkins, and he describes storytelling as an art, and he says it's the art of world making. And so he coined this term here, transmedia storytelling, as a way of describing how a range of media can come together to really provide robust spaces for meaning making. And if transmedia is a bit of an unfamiliar term, you might be familiar with multimedia instead. So multimedia experiences typically combine a bunch of different media efforts into usually a single object. So if you're thinking of a documentary, for example, often takes place on a DVD. You can ship a DVD, then it combines text, audio, still images, and can have animation and video messages as well. So multimedia forms are great, but they typically are fairly constrained. But they can really lead to powerful experiences if they're done well. But by contrast, transmedia storytelling really seeks to use different media synergistically. So instead of just collapsing media into a single form, media can stand on their own. Independent pieces can stand on their own, but they can also really collaborate and cooperate together themselves too. So there's a really nice dynamism there that complements sustainability science and the collaborative work that we like to do on NEST. So before I dive into the actual site that I created, I want to go over a couple of examples of sites that I think really set a nice precedent for a similar work like this. The first is a landmark piece by the New York Times. It's called Snowfall, And John Branch, the author, really did an outstanding job of combining, of taking the signature high quality of writing and reporting of the New York Times to make an investigative report on what happened when there was an avalanche on a ski mountain in Washington State. And unfortunately, a number of skiers in the backcountry, it took their lives. But the story itself is gripping, and it incorporates visuals and on all this great writing, video as well, and also, this is a pretty neat one, interactive graphics too. So really engaging piece, and this was published in 2012, and it had a large impact on journalism. And since 2012, a lot of times when people will publish similar projects, so things that do something similar, they'll be called snowfalls. So the New York Times really spun off a new genre of reporting through this site. It's been very influential. And the other one I want to show, I'll take us away from Cowboy Mountain here and Big Chief Mountain for a minute. It's a really neat project. This is produced by the National Film Board of Canada, and it's an interactive documentary. And this is a really moving story about a mining town in Canada's Northwest Territories. But when the mine was closed down, the town was closed down as well. And so the homes and the people that were there were transported across the country. It's a really interesting study of a national diaspora told through the experiences of the producers as well as the experiences of the main characters, and also through the experience of the viewer too. So just to get a sense of kind of how they put this together, here's just the first page. It's interactive. It's linear in a sense too, but it's very gripping, and there's audio too. They blend these materials very well. But another great example of highly engaging storytelling. So, I'm actually gonna have to close this again. So, what I want to do was something like this for Nest, and I wanted to build on these approaches and apply them to sustainability science so that we can involve readers in processes that help them make sense of complex projects like Nest that are doing complex work like sustainability science. And both of those things, both sustainability science and Nest, are really all about bringing people together to do work together and to solve these problems. So I wanted to use the concept of transmedia to build a site around not just storytelling, where we're focused on dissemination, but story making, where we can draw people in and help them contribute to that process of sense making as well. And it really focuses on the ways that communication shapes our interactions, both on Nest and then also with Nest's interactions with stakeholders too. So what I want to do next is, here's the site. I want to walk through a few key pages of the site. It's not going to be exhaustive, but I want to show a few examples that I think really highlight what these online archives can do and can offer sustainability science. So we'll go into the site, and each page demonstrates something unique. So the first one kind of provides an overview of what Nest is, as well as what sustainability science is. Dr. McGreavy's here. She's featured on this page, and elsewhere as well. But what I want to point our attention to is this this timeline right here. This was a timeline that I realized I needed a way of making sense of, like, the overall map, kind of the overall flow of the project. And the timeline is interactive, but it's also a collection of milestones that shows the major activities that need to take place that go into making something like this a success. So it's a high-level summary of what's going on Nest. But it also shows that it's a way for Nest and others to make sense of our collaborative work and to understand what goes into making that take place. There's another page though. Since Nest is focused on beaches and shellfish, I have a couple pages on these resources. And the one I want to focus on here, well, first of all, there is, I have a range of text here that's focused on the work and the research that has gone into learning about beaches, but in order to help people learn as well, in order to help the average visitor learn, whether or not they've ever been to a beach, this might look like a static image, but it's really a three-dimensional interactive image. If you've ever used Google Street View, it's very similar. So I visited these beaches, many of the beaches that we're studying on the Nest project, both in New Hampshire and in Maine, and really trying to give people a way of experiencing these beaches, even if they can't get out to them themselves. And so this page shows that online archives can also increase public access to ideas, but also that the products of collaborative research really can be interactive as well. And interactions, I'm going to skip the shellfish page for now. We'll come back to that one in a few minutes. But interactions really are the basis of how NEST operates. It's the model for how they do their work. And so the collaboration page focuses on these researcher interactions that make NEST's work possible. So I'm going to play a video here that kind of highlights this NEST model. And it's a video of a bunch of collaborations that took place during one of NEST's all-team meetings, where we all got together to plan our work. So it's just a couple minutes long. I'm going to let it play, and then we'll move on to another page as well.
We see this going on always. I'm a postdoctoral researcher on the New England Sustainability Consortium. On NEST, we are all focused on safe beaches and shellfish. So we have these regular all-team meetings. It's an opportunity for everybody on the project in both Maine and New Hampshire to get together, learn updates on where the research is at, and then find ways that we can collaborate together moving forward. We started out with just an overview of this is sustainability science as we understand it as an organization. In the morning, it was really planned out. I mean, the agenda spelled out what we were going to do down to the minute, essentially. And people gave their presentations. We had the facilitated small group discussion, some report out. It's pretty highly structured. And then in the afternoon, we did this interdisciplinary activity that we were calling the Outer Limits. David Hart is the one who came up with that idea, and he came to me and he said, you know, I was thinking about this game where we could have people, you know, try on each other's disciplinary jargon or language and use it as an opportunity to learn more about each other's work. So there was an element of trust going into the afternoon because we weren't really sure how it was going to go. And for me, I was just really struck by how everybody just dove into the activity. Everybody was engaged and fully invested in what we were doing. It was a full group buy-in and participatory process, whereas in the morning there was a lot of listening and learning. The afternoon, I think it was a lot of engaged processing and creativity too.
Let's get together, make the river better. The series of models, the size is so bad. Maybe the solution is gonna be so rad.
So their group did a rap for their group activity there to plan how they were going to work as a group and as a team on NEST. So this section of the page shows how the NEST model has informed, and we're using it to inform the way that we build our online archives as well, so that we can have a space to enhance collaboration too. Another way that NEST collaborates is by building on that internal collaboration and expanding it outward to reach society and the public. And this page highlights how NEST is focused on this. Always trying to make those expansions and include stakeholders in the public. So I want to show a video about a grad student who wanted to reach out to the public and give a presentation at a middle school and help kids get interested in STEM, STEM pursuits at an early age.
So my name is Sophie. I am a student just like you guys. I go to school in New Hampshire at a place called Plymouth State.
I'm just going to do some work with you guys on watersheds today. We're going to delve into it a little deeper when we get into our ecosystems stuff.
I'm Sophia Scott. I am a first-year master's student on the NEST project. We went to Gray, New Gloucester Middle School, and I talked to two groups of sixth graders about the importance of healthy shellfish and healthy beaches. Casco Bay is an interesting watershed because it's relatively small landmass that holds 25% of Maine's population. I chose Gray because it's pretty far geographically away from Casco Bay, so the kids may not have realized that activities that happen in Gray, activities that they may participate in, do have effects on Casco Bay. So it was an interesting exploration of watersheds and a really fun activity. That was a really great hands-on opportunity for kids to actively be engaged and see how pollutants transport within a watershed. I really like engaging with the population. It's working with young kids. It's encouraging to see people so excited about learning. I feel like you really need to engage kids from a young age. I think that's a good place to start. I mean, I went in and said, this is what a scientist can look like. And it's not really an image of what they may have had in their minds. I think it's really important to see that someone else could be a scientist so that they could maybe look up to that or even just become more interested in it. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that it's something that I want to pursue. I mean, whether or not it becomes a career, maybe they liked what they saw, they thought, oh, maybe I could do that, and maybe it will just increase the interest in STEM pursuits.
So both of the videos I've shown feature NEST researchers talking to the visitor, and we don't have time to play the audio of this one, but for example, in the introduction page, there's a Maine lobsterman, a Penobscot man, or sorry, a Passamaquoddy man, who is a Maine lobsterman. He says he's a 100th generation Maine lobsterman, not a NEST researcher, and he's also on the shellfish page down here telling his story. So not a researcher, but an example of a way that we're bringing stakeholders in to contribute to our story making. But in terms of Sophia's story, it shows that engagement between researchers and stakeholders kind of can beget more engagement opportunities later on. For example, Sophia was in school in New Hampshire, but she chose to get engaged with Maine stakeholders in Maine, in Gray, there, and this led to a collaboration between she and I to produce the video, and led to more engagement possibilities between the public and NEST through this website that we contributed to here.
And Tyler, can I just add one thing to that? Sophie was also doing this as part of a class that all of the NEST students were participating in, and we were polyconning in from different institutions, so she was doing this as a project for that class.
Yeah. And so I was also in the class, so that that collaboration was both of our projects in a way that we worked together toward that end. And then briefly, there's also a page on the site about getting involved. So I have a case study here with one of our stakeholders, Carrie Kazor of Maine Healthy Beaches, which is involved in water quality monitoring and sampling to make sure that the water around beaches has healthy water quality levels and is clean. And so she was talking about her experiences here in this text with working with NEST and collaborating with NEST toward finding solutions to water quality issues. But she also offers a reflection on and some advice to those who want to get involved with NEST. So I included this section of ways of taking that next step. If a visitor wants to, if they like what they see on the site, they like what they hear about NEST, ways that they can get involved in and either collaborate with Maine-based stakeholders or New Hampshire ones, including NEST itself and its programs, and even through a few public platforms, wherever they are in the world. If they can't contribute directly to NEST, at least getting involved in citizen science and sustainability science through online platforms. And lastly, just to bookend the site out, is a resources and references page that, as we saw through the timeline, that was one way of making sense of the NEST project. But this is another way, this is more of an archive here, a way of making sense of some of the learning that has been done on NEST, and learning that was done by me through the process of making the project as well. So sustainability science, environmental communication, some definitional work, as well as references and more information should people want to find out more as well. So kind of bookending the site and providing more tools for sense making there as well. But I want to go back quickly to this shellfishing page, because it highlights another dimension that I think is really interesting. For example, early in my work on NEST, I was conducting interviews to support the research of Dr. Teresa Johnson in the School of Marine Science, and she was interested in the social dimensions of clam flat closures. And one of my interviewees one time was this clam harvester who said that his primary hope, his ultimate goal for our project, like the one thing he would want us to do, was to increase the public knowledge of shellfish harvesting and the work that shellfish harvesters do, including understanding a little bit more about what harvesters endure to get seafood and shellfish from the sea to people's plates. And it really stuck with me. So a year ago, Dr. McGreavy and I tried a strange but kind of exciting new project that is involved in using body-mounted recording equipment to get a sense of what it's like to harvest clams. So I'm going to show this video. It's much shorter than the other ones, but in this one you can see that he has a GoPro camera mounted to his head. We've since switched to a chest-mounted camera because it's more stable, but also microphones mounted in his ears. So a way of giving the eventual viewer a way of understanding a little bit more of what it's like to be a clam harvester from their perspective. So this one's really quick, but just to give you a sense of what that's like. So much shorter, but a way of getting a sense of that. And so we like to call this project ClamCam. And the idea in turn spawned its own research project, and we're deep in the middle of it. So we're using these body-mounted recording technologies to study the culture of clam harvesting at a really fine scale. So it will let us make contributions to the field of communication, specifically, including focusing on those interactions between ourselves and the harvester, them and the technology, as well as the tools they use for the dig, and their interactions with the clams and the mud and the water. So we're really interested in those. But another major goal of the project is to create a subsite of this website here, where we can share these recordings publicly, and that anyone can come to and watch these different examples of clam harvesting so that they can understand a little bit more. So the research I began on with NEST has spawned stakeholder engagement that in turn is informing subsequent research opportunities and engagement opportunities too. So I've talked at length about the Safe Beaches and Shellfish project, but there's a new NEST project that's coming online, focused on the future of dams, and this site's about to, or in the process of, accommodating more storytelling based on that NEST project. So I'm going to let Dr. McGreavy take it over for a few minutes and tell you a bit more about that effort.
Thanks for that setup. And as you can see, there's been this incredible investment of time and creative energy as part of the Safe Beaches and Shellfish project. So we wanted to be able to carry this forward. And we're in this unique opportunity where I get to stay and Tyler's staying on, and we want to grow this just to see, what else is possible in these transmedia storytelling platforms. So we started to experiment with that a bit last semester in the context of a class that I was teaching in environmental communication. Part of the impetus for this is in my teaching, I really like to be as engaged as possible. I like students to do projects that respond to either institutional or community needs. So I wanted to explore what would be possible for doing this in a class with 213 students. Thinking about how do you engage, how do you have an active learning project at that scale. So we explored that through the development of this communication decision support system, but the idea that there's so much work, great student work that happens on college campuses every semester, that at the end of the semester just kind of sits dusty on the shelf or in the hard drive or just gets lost in the shuffle. We wanted to try and find a way of making those projects more broadly accessible and connecting those projects with different types of decision-making needs. So I share this image here not because this is what the experience was like of bringing service learning to 213 students. There were moments that felt a little bit like that, but to just highlight this was actually a drawing that was part of a blog post that a student in the class did. And it was just beautiful, and they had multiple drawings. I'll show another one. And it's another way, as Tyler was saying, of helping people connect with some of the pressing issues related to dams. So as I mentioned, this was a class with about 213 students, although we did pilot it in my upper division class with 25 students. You can see here predominantly incoming first years. And as I learned at the end of the semester, they're mostly in these large lectures. And so this is an opportunity for them to have large lecture, but then we have it set up so that we have Monday, Wednesday lecture and Friday recitation sections. So these are a smaller group experience. They were taking the information that they were learning in the large lecture, discussing it, applying it, developing these projects in the smaller discussion sessions on Friday. But I wanted to highlight that because I was also working with 4 teaching assistants who helped run those recitation sections. And that was essential for my ability to actually pull this off, our collective ability, because it was a lot to manage. This is important, this kind of approach, this service learning, in terms of the commitments that we have in sustainability science, as Tyler was describing, that we want to address these complex problems, bring different disciplinary perspectives, stakeholder perspectives to bear in understanding these problems, so that we can advance different types of solutions. And this is also a core commitment in environmental communication, which many people have described as a crisis discipline, beginning with this idea that environmental communication as a discipline or as a field intends to identify problems and failures in our communication about the environment. For teaching this class, I mean, the many problems related to climate change, ocean acidification, in the project we were working on, dams, the list goes on and on and on. You can imagine from a student's perspective, that starts to weigh really heavy on them. Like, okay, you're teaching us about all these problems. What can we do about it? So the Service Learning Project and the CDSS is a way of helping to empower students to create new ways of communicating to address problems. So that's a really important commitment that we wanted to realize through this project. I was stepping into this new faculty position, teaching this large lecture class for the first time at the same time that the Future of Dams project started up. And I thought that this was a great opportunity for me to try and connect the two and explore ways of integrating my research and teaching as well, and gave me an opportunity to think really deeply about dams that in the first semester of this new faculty position I might not have otherwise had. So there were a lot of value added aspects to doing this. So we focused a semester-long case study on this project, the Future of Dams project that both Tyler and David talked about, to find ways to connect environmental communication perspectives with dams and decision making. The really great thing about this is that we're on an island adjacent to one of the most successful dam removal and river restoration projects in the United States and possibly even internationally. So in terms of place-based learning, this is a very rich opportunity for students. And we focused on the Penobscot River Restoration Project. We hadn't at the time decided on the Future of Dams project, our sites, the sites that we would focus on. This has become, we think, one of our primary sites as well. Because largely, although there are ongoing studies about the impact of dam removals on fish species, the human dimension of this, the process and the different types of social outcomes has largely been under-examined. So David came in early on, and as the PI on the Future of Dams project was one of our primary partners in getting this going. He introduced dams to students and talked about the multiple perspectives related to dams and trade-offs and decision-making about dams. We also invited Catherine Schmidt from Maine Sea Grant in. If you haven't read her book, The President's Salmon, I want to make a plug for that. It's beautifully written, and she came in and was able to talk about some of the research that she had done on media framing about dams and providing specific recommendations to people about how do we talk about fish in rivers in ways that will connect with other types of values like historic preservation. John Banks, who's the director of the natural resources for the Penobscot Nation, also came in and spoke with the students, as did Rory Saunders and Tara Trinko-Lake from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So all of these partners help students understand this project and about the needs for connecting environmental communication with this archive of materials related to the Penobscot River Restoration Project. Students self-selected based on these project portfolios that were organized around the primary focal areas in environmental communication, including rhetoric, visualizations, news framing, science and risk communication, justice, social justice, and public participation and collaboration on dams. So they got a portfolio of materials that had a summary sheet, gave them some guiding questions about how to connect these environmental communication perspectives with an archive of materials such as news articles, videos, visual images. One of the great things is that the Penobscot River Restoration Trust has an incredible archive of materials that we were able to draw from, and then we expanded from there as well. So students worked in small groups, mainly through the recitation sections, and they had a choice of doing either a mixed media blog post or a creative performance, which we have then, and when I say we, I mean Tyler, who has done the bulk of this work of going through the projects and compiling them, archiving them on this communication decision support system, with the idea that people who are interested in exploring the relationship between communication and the Penobscot River could go on this website and do that. So there's one, is this it, Tyler? Is the right one? Okay, I think we have time to do this. There's one that I wanted to show in particular. I could really wow you with my upper division student websites, which were just beyond anything that I ever would have envisioned, literally. I mean, they were doing advanced analysis, a graduate level analysis. I was so impressed with the work that they did, but I was also so impressed with the more introductory students and how they were connecting environmental communication concepts to make sense of this, but then also the creativity. And this is one that I think really demonstrates that. How many of you have seen the Conservation International films where they have people like Robert Redford and Julia Roberts narrating? Have you seen these? So we showed this in class, and I think that is what inspired this. And what I really like about this is that they took the perspective of the river and then the dam, and they were looking at these different frames and how that shapes our understanding of this thing that is a river or this thing that is a dam, and they juxtapose those. We only have time to show one, but this will be live, so you're welcome to take a look at it later on. But here's the river one. Hopefully the sound works. They, I think, got a little excited with the background noise, so we'll see.
The removal of the Daisy Dam to me as a Penobscot tribal member and a professor at UMaine is basically a freedom in which now the water can travel and the fish can travel and the people can travel without any obstructions. It opens up its natural path.
I am the river.
So this is a student narrating it.
I am a vein of the earth.
Indecorous voice is a
I
concept that
provide
we
a
explore in the
habitat for
class.
hundreds of species. I am the life source for the trees and plants. I am the life source for you. I carry your most precious commodity. You can't live without me. I give my water to the pipes, the veins that run through your buildings. I am in your homes. I can't live without you. I am in your roots. I was named for the tribe, and the tribe was named for me. I am history. For years, men have fought to possess me, but few will fight to free me. Salmon would return to me again and again. Now the most I can hope for is that they try. Where I provide opportunities, you provide obstacles. I am speaking. It is time for you to listen.
I just love that. The dam one is very different. It emphasizes power generation, takes a completely different frame on this issue. So they're really starting to understand complexity and thinking very creatively as well. Back here, Tyler. There we go. Okay. So we've archived these, and when this goes live, they will be available. This is also part of a collaborative project. It was funded by the Campuses for Environmental Stewardship, so several faculty members listed here are actually bringing service learning to their classes, and we're
trying to understand outcomes from using service learning in these ways. So this is our guiding question. We're noticing both quantitatively and qualitatively increases or positive change in attitudes towards civic engagement, motivations for environmental stewardship, and core competencies for engagement. And I just want to highlight a few quotes that I think demonstrate that. I can speak for all of my group members when I say that we all learn to collaborate more effectively through this project. I realize the importance of public participation and I should be involved if given an opportunity. But this is the one that really stands out for me, especially in terms of the work that's going on in the student video that I just shared, is that these students are showing up on campus for the first time, largely. They're disoriented, not connected to place yet. The student said, I had no idea that the campus was even on the Penobscot. So to learn about how far the river has come and how it's still improving is awesome to know about and see. And they're doing that in a very embodied way. So that's my story of town.
Thanks, Bridie. And so, really, just to wrap up really quickly, with the transmedia site now published, the goal is to keep that site available while we do further development on this communication decision support system on the future of dams, and we start soon development on the sub-site for the ClamCam project too. So to conclude, online archives really, when they're focused on sustainability science, they can be all about stakeholder engagement. That's what we found, and that these archives really aren't dead things. They're not inert, they're doing important work. And so we like to think of them as habitats where stories and people can come together to produce sustainability, and where hopefully communication can be a catalyst for engagement. So these sites produce engagement through their development between researchers, and they also amplify the collaborative nature of research, but they also are a way, and they extend our ability to interact with stakeholders while letting them have a more active role in making meaning out of processes like knowledge production. And so communication is it functions both as a roadmap and then a vehicle for engagement with stakeholders in sustainability science. And finally, we see that sustainability science is really developing some incredible tools that are really useful for society to use in decision making and management. And so if the materials that NEST is developing can be thought of as tools, then we think these online archives provide really nice boxes for these tools that extend their capabilities, and our goal is to just make them accessible and useful to New England and to the rest of the world too. So thanks so much.
I have two questions for you. One, who's the archivist?
Mm-hmm.
Because archives need sort of this constant maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And so after you go away,
Mm-hmm.
so who becomes the archivist?
Mm-hmm.
And two, do you have any sense of whether or not community stakeholders are accessing, because you talked a lot about
Mm-hmm.
researchers and collaborations with the people who are kind of used to working with archives. And so I think you have to have somewhat of an inclination to think about archives as a resource, and then how do I access it? And so I just wondered if you had any sense of whether or not the community members were tapping into this. So that's my two questions.
Those are great. And remind me what your first one was again?
Who's the archivist?
Oh yeah, so it's pretty much me. And so the question about longevity.
Sustainable model?
Yeah, the question about longevity is an important one, a really important one. The goal is to have the archives be like, if it's not possible for me to continue working on them forever, which is likely, to have them still be able to be preserved, and to still be able to be there. So, I mean, we have the server space. The site doesn't need to necessarily be updated in order to be relevant, I don't think. I mean, in terms of NEST's new projects and ongoing work, that it's really important to be able to develop ways of doing that for the future. But for now, like for example, the transmedia storytelling site, it's effectively final. So it's a snapshot of the work that we were doing on NEST, and that's kind of the way that we're grappling with that one. And then in terms of, I'm sorry, and then the second question.
Who's using it?
You're actually pretty well on this test.
Yeah.
The second part of it was, do you have any sense of whether or not community members, other stakeholders are accessing?
Yeah, and so So I have analytics for the site that I can see. I can see, when it's being visited. I mean, we've had a nice number of visits. It's interesting because the visits concentrate around campus and then, and then become a little bit less and less as they expand. So one of my goals is to keep promoting the site beyond just our own bubble that we have here. But unfortunately, I can't see who's accessing it. But I will say that the nice thing about transmedia storytelling is I was always focused on accessibility. So while archives can be cumbersome, this one is really meant to be an archive that's accessible, first and foremost, so that people can use it. So it's not just putting things off on a shelf, but that it's always there in front of you, able to be used. Thank you.
One thing I would just add to that is the strategy of building from this existing infrastructure, we have Safe Beaches and Shellfish project, and now with the Future of Dams, is a strategy to promote that longevity. Because oftentimes you'll have these sites, and it just stays that way, doesn't grow and change over time. But then figuring out how do we keep, in the work that I want to do in this class, like have somebody who's going to take responsibility for posting those videos. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but we are thinking about the sustainability of these platforms and how do we help them be livable or living. And then the second thing about engagement is we are also cultivating some interest in engagement as we're reaching out to shellfishermen in particular and thinking about other ways that the clam cam part of it could be posted on Maine Clammers Association, so you'd have some duplication in the information across sites, and it would extend other capabilities like the Maine Clammers Association. They're really interested in having additional content on their site, so kind of having that cross-platform connectivity.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great point because we have been doing a lot of that work already. For example, a lot of materials from this transmedia site, like for example, they're made public forever here on the DDC. So this is a storytelling, or this is a data portal that that is made to preserve this archive for posterity. So even if the site were to go down someday for some reason, it would be here on the DDC. So it's redundancies built in as well. Yeah, that's a great question. So both of these are coded using HTML and CSS, so web coding, but pretty much coded by hand using the Bootstrap development framework, which is nice because, like for example, if we resize this, I'm going to close it. If we resize the site, it's responsive design, so it'll scale the site automatically. A lot like a public platform like WordPress would do. But the nice thing is this one gives us a little bit more control than a platform like WordPress. So it's Bootstrap, that's the name of the platform. We had a question.
It's really more of a comment because I was doing some research before I got here and I tried to find you guys online because of New England Sustainability Forum. Nothing came up because I didn't know the NES, I didn't know New England Sustainability Consortium.
Oh, didn't have
so
the last
part. I just want to tell
part.
you that you're doing Google searches, there's no, it was all about other universities, sustainability, New England sustainability programming. So just wanted to say that if you don't know that word consortium, you all don't come up.
And the acronym definitely does not make that clear.
No.
Yeah.
I would remember
T
that.
in
So,
the
Yeah, maybe put like team in or something. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know how you tag it, but you might want to.
So some more work that can be done with search engine optimization
There you
too.
go.
Yeah, thanks.
That's it.
So I have a question about the clammer who had this real strong desire to have people know what it's like to do the work he does. Do you have any sense? Has he seen this, and how does he feel about that, and what else could happen there? Or
That's a timely question, but could you? I think you.
Yeah. So as we're continuing to advance the clam cam study, part of our method is to analyze the videos with clam harvesters so that they can help us make sense of it. So we've done a little bit of pilot work around that, and it's funny because we just followed up with that very harvester yesterday and showed him the clam cam, showed him the Nest website, and it was really interesting how he was comparing, in this case the video that I shared was from Gouldsboro, the differences in the technique for hand pulling and in the substrate and in the number of clams there. And he seemed to think that this was a really effective way of getting at that embodied practice, and he was very supportive of the idea of connecting this with Lynn Climbers Association and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, they seem to be responding positively.
So you talked about how you had involved Maine and New Hampshire and then Rhode Island, but I was wondering why you limited to those New England states instead of the other few.
Yeah, well, that's mainly a function of the focus of the NIST research team. So the grants were written specifically focused on New England states, specifically Maine and New Hampshire.
Could be Massachusetts and Connecticut have their own.
Yeah.
So every grant has sort of
Yeah.
funny rules.
Yeah.
The rules for this grant were it's only the EP score states, which turn out to be, I'm sorry to say this, the below average states. In the sense it's kind of an affirmative action program for states that don't get as much money in federal R&D as Massachusetts, for example. And in that case, we could have also, other states include Vermont, but we tended to have a coastal focus. So that's what it's about. Well, let's thank them again. Great. Thank you.